Rolling.
44-3. All right, so Trump gave this speech in Pennsylvania over the weekend where he talked about low IQ Maxine Waters. And that made me realize out of the three of us, two of us are kind of expert on IQ. I've taken a bunch of IQ tests. Our director used to administer IQ tests professionally. And this isn't the first time that Trump has mentioned IQ, and he's often bragged about his own IQ. He said it was high. He said it was higher than Rex Tillerson. And other times he's tweeted that it's among the highest and stuff like that. So I thought we could discuss Trump's IQ. Do you want to start with, what do you think of Trump's? How would you? Oh, you're going to smile. Bless you. Bless you.
Well, I think because of the fact that I've administered him professionally, I think it would, for me, it would be unethical for me to try to predict what his IQ.
You haven't given tests professionally in a decade. You used to. Come on, now you're just trying to tap dance out of it.
Well, there's different forms of intelligence. I mean, you have that, and that's a fact, and that there's like intelligence in terms of math, intelligence in terms of music, and there's even intelligence in terms of personality and stuff. And
emotional intelligence,
right? And even like some people can say even beauty, like extreme beauty, is a form of genius as well. I would have to say that he's pretty brilliant when it comes to, in terms of entertainment, in terms of relating to people, and I mean, it's. For example, he had The Apprentice for all these years. That, as you know, being in show business, to maintain high ratings for a show. He didn't
maintain high ratings. His ratings started off. I don't think he had a single season where The Apprentice was among the top 10 shows of that season. I think he started off with The Apprentice maybe being in the top 20, but over the course of 14 seasons, it fell. I think by the end, it wasn't even in the top 100 network shows.
Just to say, how many people can say they had a show for 14 seasons? I mean, that's pretty unbelievable.
I was on hired by a show for 12 seasons.
But it was his show.
Yeah, well, kinda.
I mean, there's to some degree, he's not stupid, and he's pretty. So I'm just my answer is that there are various forms of intelligence, and he is definitely intelligent, and he does have his strengths.
Okay, so here's my take.
Got it.
It's almost impossible to get a successful adult to take an IQ test, for the very good reason that it's only possible to lose. Why would somebody who's successful in the world want to take a test where, if they do well, it just confirms that, yeah, I'm a successful person with, the skills to be a successful person. On the other hand, they take an IQ test or the SAT or whatever, and they screw it up, and it's like, oh yeah, this supposedly successful person is a moron. There's no reason for a successful person in the world to take an IQ test. And it reflects badly on me that I'm so willing to take IQ tests, because it shows that I don't have that much else going for me. This is my credential. I'm kind of manufacturing a bullshit credential. So you're right that it would be dumb to evaluate Trump solely in terms of IQ. But if you had to, I would guess that he's a guy of average intelligence for a businessman with an IQ in the, say, 120s at least, as a younger man who's probably had his IQ knocked down a little bit through age and maybe not the healthiest lifestyle, into the 110s somewhere.
Well,
But-
I mean, in that, but I have to refute some of that because he's never drank and he's never smoked.
Yeah, but
So
he eats,
that-
he doesn't exercise except for golf and yelling, and he eats like crap. And he's 70, did he just turn 72 or no, I think he turns in a couple months. So and everyone on average loses a number of points loses fluid thinking skills as they move. I think you peak in your 30s. Most people peak in their 30s. And then it's just a slow glide down. Plus his dad died of dementia, though he didn't die till he was like 91. But I mean, Trump, may be subject to stuff like that. We don't know. Though he's a combination of sharp and either dumb or just sloppy and careless. He makes crazy spelling errors in his tweets, but if you look at everybody's tweets and texts and stuff, the technology facilitates dumb errors. So you can't entirely call him dumb necessarily because of dumb spelling errors. You can call him not give a crap. You can say that he's careless, but I would say that he might have the lack of curiosity. He's been accused of having a lack of curiosity by some people. He's a guy who's used to getting his way, and that may lead to a certain complacency.
What do you mean by lack of curiosity?
That people say he doesn't like to read, that that if he may read a memo, if he does read a memo, it has to be like boiled down to a page. He's not interested in like a deep informational dive into
But if you
issues.
look at him I mean, he stood toe to toe with 17 Republicans on the debate stage. He stood toe to toe with Hillary Clinton, who's brilliant, I think, super smart, on the debate stage.
Yeah, but he didn't win by smartness. He won by Trumpness.
But that's what I mean by there's another form. There's different forms of smart. There's not just there's the academic smart, yes, and then there's street smart. Which one is better than which? If you're in a fight.
Yeah,
Either you're street smart, academic smart's not going to get, you may be killed. And if he's street smart, it just depends on the situation, I think. Like the situation with North Korea right now, his street smart will probably kick this guy's ass, who's also probably more like Trump than anyone else.
Then you could also say that there's luck smart. There's the being lucky enough to have the right to have an aggressive personality that happens to unlock some doors that have been he could be more lucky than smart
That's true.
in some of this. Anyway, Lance, you had
Lance?
stuff to say.
All right, I have 2 points I'd like to make. The first is that he actually took a test recently with his doctor.
Did you see the test?
I did see the test. In fact, unless I'm mistaken, I took the test on. It was on Facebook. They had. I saw the questions, and they gave you on. There was this video, and they asked the question. They gave you about 5 seconds to answer, and I didn't do as well as Trump. It's actually.
Then there's something wrong with your brain, because that's a test for signs of early dementia.
Well, I can assure you it was not an easy test. And
I've seen the test, and it is an easy test. When they showed you a picture,
Okay, I don't know what I took on Facebook, but what I took was.
did it ask you to identify a lion from a picture of a lion?
Yeah, I think. You know what? I'm.
Yeah.
What else did it ask me to do?
I forget, but it asked you to identify 3 animals, I believe, from drawings of those animals, including perhaps, I don't know if it was a lion, but I think there was a rhinoceros in there.
Well, rhinoceros is hard. Anyway, no, but let me put it to you this way. It was.
I mean, if you run into a rhinoceros, they're fucking right.
I'm just saying, how many, fucking rhinoceros? It's a very obscure animal. Anyway.
No, come on.
The
It's
point-
in every kid's freaking.
I don't know. By the way, no, but in all honesty, I took the test, and given very little time, it was difficult for me. And I believe I missed more questions than he did.
Well, he didn't. I don't think he missed any, but
didn't.
That's what I mean.
But the
It
deal is
wasn't
that
easy.
it's a test designed that any functioning adult should be able to get a perfect score.
No, I got a little confused here and there, and I'm
so-
on the,
all right, so
people can judge by what they've heard in the debates.
Well,
with their
the
own
deal is
friends.
it's super easy,
Okay.
and any confusion.
it would have been super easy, but I got a little confused here and there. I did.
And
I
maybe,
did.
but was it? Now it could have been that it wasn't given to you by a practiced examiner.
Yeah, maybe they're speeding it up, and the Facebook might have been by Republicans trying to make excuses for him. Maybe they sped it up or something, or I don't know what.
All right.
But-
Anyway,
but I have
the
something
point is he
more-
scored 0 deficit on a
All right,
test
all right.
of early dementia.
Right, but I have more to say on it.
Okay.
And this is what I've been saying now for really my whole life, and I'm actually kind of amazed at how correct this is. Not that I'm, some genius, but I've always thought that if you took a good person that was not a politician and put them in Washington and said, okay, you have control over America, do the best you can on all these issues, and you don't have to worry about getting reelected or pleasing anybody, you've got enough money, just do the right thing. That I think that person would do better than somebody that was trying to please their donors, trying to get reelected, that had been many years in government and so was kind of a little bit corrupted by the process. Maybe a lawyer that saw all the angles and was very timid and said, no, we could get sued if we do that. I have to be careful what I say because I don't want to turn off this constituency. And I think just somebody that was pretty bright and wanted to do the right thing would do a better job than a slick politician. And that's what we're finding out. It may be that just having a blunt, simple guy that says, fuck North Korea. They want to act like that? Well, guess what? I'm going to starve them, and I'm going to surround them with nuclear submarines. And let's see how they like that shit. That's how it worked for me in New York, and I'm going to try it on them. Instead of like this very considered, very scholarly guy, and he gets a whole bunch of PhDs in a room and experts on North Korea, and they say, well, you could do this and you could do that, but we don't want to offend. He just says, fuck that shit. He's acting mean to us, we'll act mean to him.
All right. So,
all right, go ahead.
all right. So, I kind of believe that if you look at, I bet you that American government has functioned best during periods where political control shifts back and forth between the two parties semi-regularly. I don't know if there are any periods. I mean, looking at America's history, I don't know if there were any normal periods in American history. It's always something. That's what history is a series of weirdnesses, and exceptional situations. But you have conservative government for too long, the economy gets overheated, and you have crashes. You have liberal government for too long, and too many regulations accumulate, and things become underheated. You alternate back and forth. You have less political polarization than we have now, and things probably function better. Under that same idea, Maybe, I mean, if Hillary were president now, things would probably be pretty messed up in a different way. They'd be gridlocked because she'd be president. Republicans would still own the House and the Senate. They'd be investigating her for things that I consider BS, but I mean, that wouldn't stop the investigations. She'd be stymied, the Republicans would be stymied, people would still be pissed off, people would still be polarized. And it may be that every once in a while, you need a crazy wild card, or somebody who is kind of outside the norm. Like Teddy Roosevelt shouldn't have been president. He became president because, who was it, McKinley got assassinated?
Correct.
All right, so this is Teddy Roosevelt was a wild animal. He was not of presidential timber. And it turned out that he, he was a good president. And it may be that at certain points in American politics, some kind of an outsider may benefit from breaking the existing structure. And Trump may have benefited from being the outsider without being particularly competent as that outsider. The situation may have been ripe enough for an outsider that even he can do some good. Though I could imagine 50 other outsiders who might have done even more good by being less of a loose cannon.
Is it possible that, and I'm going to pose this to both of you guys, is it possible that our founders of this country wanted people that were not career politicians? I mean, wasn't that the whole idea of you'd go serve your term and then you go back and do the work
Well, I mean,
for somebody else, as opposed to these people that become politicians and lose their whole lives and lose touch with what the people are going through,
well,
right?
the Greeks and Romans had that principle. You get, didn't the Romans pick people? Who picked people at random? The Greeks or?
The principle that is most in keeping with what our director said is the story of Cincinnatus. And he was a Roman general. And what happened was he had gone and become a farmer. And the Romans were attacked by a neighboring tribe. And so he put down his plow, and he led the Roman army to victory, saving Rome. And when he was done, he went back to his plow.
Yeah, but
So he did not hunger for power. He was only a patriot interested in saving his country.
Yeah, but who had the deal where you got picked at random and you served and then you were done?
That one I'm not aware of.
Anyway.
There may have been one like that, but I mean, there have been a number of systems tried. At one time, one of the more interesting ones was the Polish government had about 400 electors in it, and they had to be unanimous. And since they were never able to get 400 guys to agree, the government of Poland in that period was always complete chaos.
All right, but the problem now is that being a politician is so miserable and has so many elements so much stuff that has to be done, raising money and voting along party lines and dealing with primaries. And the job of politician is so far away from what a good person might want to do and be that a lot of scumbags are attracted to politics. And good people are like, hell no, who wants to go through that? to accomplish not much. Look at all the people who are quitting Congress because they're sick of the way things are in Congress.
Yeah, but you know, you fail to take into account two of Trump's advantages. The first is very true that he did not need anybody's money. So he's literally doing what he wants
Except for
to
possibly the Russians. But that's another argument to
do.
have.
Okay. So he's not trying to curry favor with any group. He didn't try to use anybody else's money. And then the second thing, which is turning out to be a huge advantage, is that he has tremendous managerial skills because he's always been a boss. His whole, don't interrupt me.
Okay.
He's always been in charge of other people. And so he's always been able to sort of choose people, fire people, and get projects done. Whereas most senators are just people that have very strong opinions about subjects, but very often have no leadership abilities. They're just people that vote the way that you want them to vote in public debates. So I think those are two things that a man with no political experience brings to the table.
I'll just say that it's more than debatable that he's good at business.
But I didn't even say that.
Yeah, but
That's
you
not-
know,
that's
you
not
talked
even
about
what I
his
said.
leadership. I mean,
Yeah, I'm saying
But
he's
he's
used
had-
it his whole life. He's been telling other men what to do, other men and women what to do. He's been a manager, an administrator, his entire life, and that is a skill. That's
But that
something
gen-
that's hard to learn.
his business behavior has benefited himself at the expense of others more than the average person in his position in industry.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Businessmen that only benefit themselves, that's kind of like every successful businessman I've ever heard of.
Yeah, but-
They're notorious for that. They're proud of it.
But you take a look at differential performance in the casino business, for instance. During the period when he lost 99% of his investors' money, other casinos were returning between 10 and 80% on investment. It's hard to screw up the casino business. But let's move on to.
We're gonna say something?
No, we're going to talk about girls and women.
Oh, and what, because it was International Women's Day.
Yeah. It's been this, yes. And we've had women in here a couple times, but it's hard to book women. So we are going to do the less than optimum thing of being guys talking about women.
Do you want to tell our millions of followers why we have so much trouble with women?
Well, for one thing, we're lazy.
Bullshit. That's
About
not
who?
the reason.
Well, if we worked hard enough, we could book women. For another thing, we had one session where things were going along well for about an hour and a half, and then there was a situation where somebody got triggered, and we had to shut down that production, and we can never show that episode. Though I personally don't feel that. I thought we were having a reasonable discussion.
You were insensitive.
Nobody's more sensitive than me.
Okay, and the other thing is that we have found that women don't seem to like this format that much, to be honest with you. They don't. I don't.
Well, you know, to be fair, we haven't tried to book that many guys
tried.
either. This format is not an easy format to not look stupid in, as I demonstrate.
All right. Well, anyway, in honor of National Women's Day,
International.
or International Women's Day, I'd like to present my theories on women. Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, go
Or
ahead.
do you want to start?
No, you go. Well, I'll start with one short thing,
All right, go ahead.
which is when I was a kid, I always heard Freud being made fun of for having asked the question, what do women want? And I was like, all right, that seems like a dumb question, but it took me a long time to work out why it was a dumb question. And I think the answer is because it groups billions of people, different people, from around the world and throughout history, associated only by gender, as if there's one answer that applies to, there have been 106 billion people who've lived since the beginning of humanity, which means that about 53 billion of them are female. There can't be one answer for what 53 billion different people want, which makes Freud's question a bad question. All right, you go ahead.
Well,
Before Lance shares his valuable insight, just really quick, what do you, and it is related to women, what do you think of the Stormy Daniels storm?
Well, I like it because I would hope that it would put pressure on people who like moral behavior from their leaders to look somewhat askance at Trump. But on the other hand, we've excused all sorts of crazy immoral stuff from our previous leaders. Bill Clinton was super compromised. Reagan was too old and tired to be compromised. But I mean, half the presidents from FDR on have had affairs, and often just with a bunch of women or affairs that went on for a long time. So, anyway, Lance.
yeah, I mean, I actually am not sure what the Democrats, well, I know the Democrats would like to peel off a few votes. Maybe some fundamentalists won't vote for Trump, but most of the people that voted for Trump already knew that he was a bit of a vulgarian. And so finding out that it looks like he may have had an affair, I don't think it's going to matter to anybody. I mean, I even have a religious answer to that one.
Wait, before you go, I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you sleep with Donald Trump for $130,000?
Should they answer that in the comment section?
Sure, or just in the confines of their heart.
It's rhetorical.
Go ahead.
I can answer the question. Since I'm self-employed and I'm trying to make a living as an artist, I have a standard price for any job, and that is $200 and all the beer I can drink while I'm working on the project. So you don't even have to ask me. You don't have to ask me twice. I actually have a theory that, for this theory you have to believe in God. But I think it amuses God to sometimes pick unlikely people to do moral things, because I actually don't think God likes goody two-shoes. My theory is that when human beings are too moralistic, like sanctimonious and judgmental of one another, God likes to throw in a little moral question, like, well, it's true that I hate adultery as God, and I don't want anybody else to commit adultery, but we can have a really good president, and you fundamentalists are going to have to accept that you can be a good leader but have committed adultery. I think if I was God, I would actually do that now and then just to get people to stop being so uptight. Because God, as I say, he doesn't like morality. He doesn't like adultery. But I also think God doesn't like the scarlet letter and everybody pointing the finger at each other.
You could also, another way of putting it is God likes a good story. Or even a really dumb story like the one that's going on right now.
Well, no, I think that it's healthy for the United States to arrive at the same place that the European countries arrived at hundreds of years ago, and that is that a person can be a great leader and have a sort of a libertine sex life in private.
A person can also be a sucky leader like Berlusconi and have a libertine sex life.
Okay. I'm just saying that we're, now that our country is several hundred years old, we should be able to accept these possibilities and be big boys and girls about it. So, in short, I don't think it's going to affect his election chances one bit. But I think if he gets Korea to give up their nuclear weapons without firing a shot, he will cruise to re-election. And it will be a conservative landslide across the board. Because people will realize how much wiser the conservative approach is to international policies.
Yeah, I disagree. Let's talk about women.
All right, it being International Women's Day, I have some theories about women that I'd like to share. And understand that when I was 13 years old, I was afraid of girls. And now that
And I
I'm
still am,
now that
especially if they're blonde.
Now that I'm in my 50s, I'm more afraid than I was at 13. You stepped on my line.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were building to the same dumb joke I was.
Okay.
I apologize.
So, okay, 3 theories. 1,
We have 312 minutes left, just so you know.
that's almost enough time for me to give you all my opinions about women. The first is that, now this is a very meaningful study, which I heard, and that is they did a study of what women want. And here's how it turned out. And I've run this by probably 36 women, and they all agree that this is true. In their teenage years, they want a boy that is popular and that their friends like. In their 20s, they want a guy that's sexy. In their 30s, they want a guy that's ambitious and looks like he's going places. In their 40s, they want a guy that's stable and successful. And from their 50s up, they want a guy they can relate to and talk to, and that they understand and can get along with. So that's my first theory, and
Hold on.
I know I'm dead right about that.
Not including all the women who don't want a guy at all.
Okay, I have more to say about this. Okay, so my second very important discussion, now this was a little known study, and people don't know about this study because it's a little unpleasant. So it's not well known, but it's interesting. And that is that there were a group of biologists that learned to train monkeys, different kinds of monkeys, macaques and various types of monkeys. I forget all the different kinds. And what they did was they taught them. They wanted to see if monkeys could be used could be taught. Are you going to interrupt me and keep helping my stories? Okay. They tried to figure out if monkeys could learn to use money. And so what they would do is they found out that the monkeys liked like grapes And so every time the monkeys performed a task correctly, they would give the monkey a little chip that they could trade for grapes. Well, they found out that the monkeys learned the system very well. And then to their surprise, they discovered that the female monkeys stopped doing any work. They stopped performing the tasks. But the male monkeys would go to the female monkeys and give them a chip and have sex with them. And then the female monkeys would take the chips and get grapes, exchange them for grapes.
So how does this, what does this say about anything?
Well, I don't know. You're the second smartest man in the world. You should be able to figure it out.
All right. Well, do you want me to say stuff?
Not if you don't have any. Not
No,
if you
well,
don't
I have
understand my point.
I have a theory of women.
But this is a true story. This.
Yeah.
I'm not making this shit
All right.
up.
Well, all right. So money applies to sex apparently, even with.
So prostitution is older than human beings, and it's a thing. Now, I'd like to go on because I have a personal theory about women, and this theory was based on observation. There's no study, but every woman I've discussed it with agrees with me. So here's my theory. You take a guy, and normally a guy is always looking for beautiful women. That's just something we do, and we're always hunting for beautiful women. It's our most basic instinct, except for maybe food and sleep. And what happens is, in my theory, is some man gets in a terrible accident and he's castrated. And so he's no longer looking for beautiful women. But suppose the guy still wanted to hang out with women. Now, why would he want to hang out with women? Might be companionship. Maybe he wants to adopt children and have a family. Maybe he wants someone to travel with, someone to discuss his problems with. And you know what that is? No, I'm going to answer
let me add
my
one
own
more
question.
reason. No, because
Just let me answer
no,
my question.
let me just say.
Can I just...
And also because society's set up for heterosexual couples.
All right. So you know what you end up with? A woman. So if you ever want to know what a woman's motive is in a relationship, just imagine a man that has virtually no interest in sex and beauty and sex and beautiful women. Imagine a castrated man that is thinking with absolutely no vote from his testicles. So it's just purely based on his heart and his mind. The genitals are gone. They're out of the picture. What would he want? He'd want what a woman wants. Now, every woman I've talked to will say the same thing. They'll say, well, there are some women that really like good sex. And I say, yeah, sure, of course. But to truly understand a woman's motives as she's going through life, she's not looking up and down at guys' asses. She's not thinking, boy, I'd like to throw that guy on the floor and fuck him. She's not thinking, wow, that's a hot-looking guy. I wonder what he looks like naked. That comes to her after thinking through, what kind of father would he be? Could I talk with him? Could I travel with him? Would he like to live in the same type of home I would like to live in? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, let me semi-agree with you using strippers. So like a guy can walk into a strip joint and he can see attractive women and think, wow, I would like to bang her and maybe her, and the guy, you can squeeze hundreds of bucks, sometimes thousands of bucks, out of a guy in a strip club in one night.
Because the strippers want to buy grapes.
Yes, and they're all working their way through college. But a woman walks into a strip joint, and she sees a guy who's so much of a loser that he's up on stage doing, strippery stuff, and she's like, yeah, okay, that guy obviously goes to the gym and he's got a fake tan, but I've got a loser at home. I do not need to get with another loser. And I mean, the one difference between the average man and the average woman might be that guys have a narrower focus. Sex is against our best interests as individual organisms. If our sole purpose in life was to survive as long as possible, we would do best to get rid of our sex drive, perhaps, because pregnancy and birth are dangerous, because you're creating another being that needs to be supported, because you're taking risks to get sex, because you're spending resources and energy on sex and the aftermath of sex. And if you really wanted to live to 90 or 100, you might, do without sex altogether. But we're not wired for that because evolution says we need to reproduce. But the costs of reproduction for guys can be lower, so our focus is narrower. We just want a bone, to put it in a stereotypical framework. And women generally take a less narrow viewpoint about potentially sexual and relational situations.
Could you call that outer course?
I guess so.
Oh, were you the one that thought of the new band? Oh, it was one of my students.
What?
He thinks there should be a new band called Foreplay.
Why?
It's a good name for a band. Instead
it
of
exists.
Coldplay, Foreplay.
I don't know.
It exists already.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Funny.
All right, so.
All right, so those are my 3 theories on women. 2 of them are studies. The study about the monkeys was performed by Yale. And I don't know who did the study on the ages of women's life, the decades, but you see, what a man wants doesn't change much since the time he's 13.
What year there was a study at Yale performed, so somebody can check it out?
The study for Yale was around 2005 that showed that prostitution was natural to monkeys. And the study on what a woman wants in different decades of her life is in the past 4 or 5 years. And my theory on a woman's motivation is the same as a guy's would be if he didn't have testicles. And that explains everything. That I just came up with in my 50s, and I wish I had known it when I was a teenager.
I have a theory that encompasses all of your theories, which is that if you want to know what somebody wants, you can do a couple things. You can ask them what they want, if they'll tolerate you asking.
Okay, women will never tell you the truth. Never. They will not answer that question honestly.
Well, nobody will tell you the truth, and it may be that they're being disingenuous, or it may be people don't know what they want. We are the bitches of so many different. We are under the forces of so many unconscious. There are so many things that unconsciously determine our behavior, that we don't really know what we want.
No, I think men know what they want.
Yeah, we want a bone, because that's the one thing we want.
We want love with a beautiful woman. And maybe it's as crude as sex, but yeah, it will ultimately end up in bed, sure, absolutely. And there's not a single man out there that's confused about that.
No, because evolution has made us these simple-minded, action-oriented things where you trace so much. I don't know what percent of the things we do in a day can be traced back to. It has something to do with the opportunity of getting laid.
Yeah, that's an old psychology thing that Freud has been saying. But
Yeah.
but
But
I think what women want changes every decade of her life. That's why it's so hard to figure out what they want. And that explains,
But
by the way, why so many beautiful women end up with really dorky, odd looking guys. Like, why is she with him? Because her idea of what she wants is different from what a man would want.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a couple things to do. One is, to find out what a woman wants, is to attempt to put yourself in her shoes, using as much information as you can gather without being creepy. And two, if you're going to be bad at that, because everybody's different, and it's hard to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. But two is to, if you can, become the best version of yourself that you can be, and see if that leads to opportunities to hang around with women if that's what you want. And
Did you say the best version of yourself?
Yeah,
well, in my case,
the
yeah.
director is making a joke because the truth is both of us are complete nerds, and it turns out the higher your IQ is, the less you know about women. So this is really amateur hour. This is our least informative.
As it
show
should,
that
I
we've
mean,
ever
because
done.
it demonstrates that guys really shouldn't talk about women.
No, it demonstrates that nerdy guys shouldn't.
No, because
You know what?
hold on. There's a Dunning-Kruger effect with guys and women.
What's that?
You should know the Dunning-Kruger effect by now, which is that dumb people aren't magically smart about being dumb. They don't realize they're dumb. Dumb people often are too dumb to realize they're dumb. And often dumb guys stride forward with great confidence into interactions with women, and through persistence or sheer volume of hitting on women, they may get lucky. I mean,
No, that's not how it works. Let me just explain briefly, very briefly. While nerdy guys like us sit here and theorize, there's some guy out there with 50 less IQ points that just walks in the bar, grabs the pussy, and walks out.
that's a
That's
a terrible way of putting
that's
it.
what's
But
really happening.
but that's also
While
Dunning-Kruger.
we're sitting here alone debating about women, there's a guy that just looks at some girl and whistles and winks at her and just grabs her and they go home. And
Yeah, but
fuck.
that's still Dunning-Kruger. He's too dumb to realize that he's
That he should be sitting back home theorizing with
no
Lance and Ray.
he's a gross a-hole, and I wrote for the Man Show for the pilot and for the last season, and one reason I was hired is I came up with a bit based on theories based on a theory I'd heard from one of my brothers that that if you were really brave and you just ask every woman you met to hook up, and that you'd get hit a lot and such, but that even if you had a 1% success rate, that's a non-zero success rate, and you would hook up. And that's a dumb strategy, but,
Actually, I have a response.
okay.
This was tried. That's why your brothers were talking about it, because they actually did this at a university. And they periodically do this test. What they do is they get a super handsome guy and they put him out in the middle of the university and they say, your job is to ask every woman you meet just to go to bed. Just, hi, I'm so-and-so. Would you like to go to bed? Now, here are the results, okay? And don't interrupt me. The results are none of the women agreed. However, they turned the test around and they got a gorgeous girl. They put her out in the middle and her job was to ask every guy, just, hi, I'm Nancy, let's go to bed. I believe 60% of the guys agreed to do it.
Okay.
Now,
Would-
how about if you take that test a step further and get a nerdy guy, ugly guy, and put him in under the same situations? I wonder how many women would go to bed. I bet you it'd be a higher turnout.
It could be, because the women might feel less like they're being played. But in any case, it's an unrealistic situation, because that's not how you do it. When we were growing up, you'd go to a bar and you'd ask women to dance, or you'd buy them a drink, and you'd hope that you could turn the conversation into a connection and either get lucky that night or make a date for later. Now you do all that business on the internet. But it still makes the most sense, in my mind at least, to try to become the best version of yourself and make yourself available and hope that that leads to something.
Well, okay.
I mean,
fair
you can't just make yourself available. You can't just, guys still need to, when I was stripping, you still needed, even when I was naked in front of women, I still sucked at picking up women, because you still need to have some ability to talk to women and to say, hey, you want to get together after I have clothes on? Anyway, let's break.
Very good.